Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for One Piece episode 859. Okay, so right off the bat, first off, I do gotta say that while I'm not the biggest fan of the Superpowers opening, it is definitely growing on me, and the reason why I'm taking note of that in general is that lately, like with me personally, I've found myself in a weird place where on occasion I'll come across an opening that requires me to at least listen to it a couple more times in order to actually either start to enjoy it or at the very least form a bit more of a coherent thought on what I think about it. And this is very much one of those times because after I listened to pretty much after I listened to it a few more times, I did start to enjoy the superpowers opening a little more. And maybe it's just a downside for me having watched just so much anime that you tend to notice certain things after a while and become a little more critical of stuff like that. So you'll probably see me switching opinions like that in the future. I will say I still don't think it's like top 10. It's like a top 10 opening or something like that. But it is kind of one of those openings where I listen to it again, and yeah, it's a little more enjoyable than it's definitely a little more enjoyable now than when I first listened to it. So yeah, it took a couple extra listenings to of the opening in order to actually enjoy it, I guess you could say. I still think it's still a little iffy, but it overall it is definitely a lot better than what I thought it was. Um, and I'll be honest, pacing wise, this episode turned out a lot better than I thought it would, but at the same time, I'd be lying if I said I didn't start to notice the cracks in this episode either. And it's one of those things that I think is only natural because over the years I've realized that it doesn't matter how good the animation director is, even they have limitations of what they can do. And in One Piece's case, they pretty much are. In One Piece's case, the animation's pretty much Toei is still bound, but pretty much the gap that they need to maintain between the anime and the manga, is the which is the greatest weakness of the One Piece series as a whole, pretty much due to the fact that it is such a long running expansive series that Oda has created that it's inevitable that the anime is going to have a few flops. Although that also reinforces my own belief that I wish Toei would just take a couple weeks off from One Piece, but because it is their most popular series, that probably won't happen. And it's really just one of those things where you kind of start realizing that there is this thin line that you end up asking, what, in One Piece's case, what exactly is the right decision to make? Because it's with One Piece, you understand the side where you understand the side as to where it makes money. So you definitely need to try your best, but at the same time, how much is needed to sacrifice, and I will say how much is necessary to sacrifice, and I will say that for the most part, I'd say that I think this is a new director they have, and for the most part, I'd say he's done pretty well at preserving at least the quality aspect of it. Like I'm sure there are again we are probably headed for problems, but for the most part, these past couple episodes have been, even if they're slow paced, they still have been pretty damn good. I think it's just when we end up getting down that. I think it's just when we end up getting to the cake part that I think things might become problematic, or the transportation of the cake. Yeah, because again I have started to notice those cracks here. Although whether I like the episode or not, that didn't stop all the CGI they used from being a touch awkward to look at. I mean, the art and animation was overall okay, with more than a few bumps, but the biggest bump was the CGI, because while it was used sparingly, there were more often than not a few times while watching the episode where I would really like jump back in my seat from how in your face the CGI felt, the art and animation felt, which I guess is their way of cutting corners with the animation budget. But yeah, art and animation wise, it wasn't probably the best looking, but it was. I guess you could say it was just fine or okay for what it was, but yeah, definitely those CGI parts, not the best looking. I'll say that much. Um, Now, but I do understand as to why they were used. Now, having said that, one thing I kind of appreciated about the episode overall is that we got to see just how much of Luffy's situation and him not being able to use Haki has actually limited what he can do right now. And while I'm not going to say he'd wipe the floor with any of them at full power, I feel that those scenes show just how much of a gap there is between himself and the Big Mom pirates as a whole, including Big Mom herself. And it really reinforces that Luffy is not ready. And honestly, just from how much he's been depending on Haki pretty much throughout this arc with the it's is honestly it even shows from just how much he's been depending on Haki throughout this arc with the others, all the others have pretty much survived on pure luck and unlikely alliances. But in Luffy's case, he's really, if you really look at this, he's really only survived because of Haki. And if he's having this much trouble without it, this really puts into perspective just how much Luffy's not ready for Kaido. And you really have to think about this for a second. If Luffy, all this time, has really only been able to survive only because of Haki, then what hope is he going to have when he finally comes face to face with Kaido? I mean, it's one of those things where with the Big Mom pirates, I mean, it's one of those things where with the Big Mom pirates, one thing we've taken away for sure is that one thing we've taken away from the Big Mom pirates for sure is that they're able to survive with and without Haki, whereas Luffy, this entire time, has been able to survive on Haki alone. Which, if that is Luffy's only way of survival against the Yonko's crew, then it's definitely an indication that something needs to change if he hopes of taking on any of the Yonko at this point. And I don't think I'm the only one who thinks this either, because if you look back at the entire Katakuri fight thus far, Luffy's really only managed to remain on that's me being generous, near equal footing with him because of his Haki, and even then, he's just barely survived. So, as strange as it is, Luffy's Haki is his biggest weakness right now. So after everything is said and done here, he needs to train other aspects of his fighting skills so he won't be so reliant on Haki, or so he won't find himself in this situation anymore. It's just like a must that needs to happen. Aside from that though, we got some pretty good stuff with Chiffon, Oven, and Pound, which as a whole was really only a prelude to what's about to happen between the three of them and how things are going to end. Because trust me, things are. This whole arc in general, it isn't going to end without some form of tragedy. I mean, we already got one with Pedro, but trust me, the tragedy is going to continue, and I've probably already ruined it by pretty much just mentioning that. But yeah, let's just say that the tragedy is going to escalate from here, and I've already probably said too much with that. And above all else, though, I feel this episode really exposed just how screwed to hell the family dynamic of the Charlotte family is. I mean, we've already known it. We already knew it was just. We already knew how screwed up the Big Mom pirates are. It was just. We already knew who the Big Mom pirates were, and just how with having Big Mom as the matriarch of this family, it was only natural. But Oven's actions in this episode really show just how twisted the concepts of loyalty to this whole crew are, and because of that, I got nothing but respect for Pound defending Chiffon the way he was doing. Like, Pound in this episode with what Pound and Chiffon for sure were just like the MVPs of this episode, and yeah, I got nothing but respect for both of them. Like just in the way that they stood up. Although you definitely know with the way that what Sanji did in this episode, you know that's probably gonna come back to bite him in the ass. But yeah. Um, but yeah, guys, that's all I got. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.